for some weird reason, I just feel like a sense of relief, because I'm like, I almost believe it, you know? I'm just like, I'm almost weirded out that I feel so relieved finding this out or something, but we still don't know if it's true or not. So me and Steven are just talking about it, and he's just like, what are you feeling right now? Like, what are your thoughts? And I'm just like, for some weird reason, I just feel a sense of relief, and I'm just start thinking about like weird feelings that I had whenever I was a kid, and just like even into my like preteen and just like young teen years, just like having weird feelings of just like, why am I so different? Like, why do I feel so different? And I'm sure, and me and Steven have talked about this multiple times since all this, but I think that everyone feels that at some point, but I like felt it probably more than any person should whenever, I don't know how to explain. There's just so much stuff. I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say. But I just was thinking about certain scenarios where I would just think like, I am so much different than my family. Like, why do I, like, just questioning myself constantly over the years. And like, I was going to a counselor before all this happened, and just like explaining certain things that had happened as a kid, and just, you okay? You just fell over. Just explaining certain things that happened when I was younger and all that, and just, it's kind of like in a movie where you just like, you're watching this movie and someone has a realization, and it's like tunnel vision all the way back through your life, all the way up to that point, and it all just makes sense all at once, you know? So I'm just in disbelief. We're like out of town, we're not at home, and we have to like, had this huge bomb dropped on us. So at this point, we don't have any answers. We don't know anything other than there's this name. And so we have that. And then it also says that I have a first cousin that I have never heard of the name before or anything. So we have these two names. And so our only options at this point are just to, you have the option on 23andme to send messages to your family member matches or whatever. So I just went ahead and sent both my half brother and my first cousin a message, and I was just like, you know, hey, this is my name, I'm just seeing this and it just doesn't seem real to me, so can you answer some questions, or do you know who I am, or whatever. So I asked questions, and me and Steven just kind of decide, okay, like, let's try to figure this out. Like, let's try to figure it out ourselves. And so we literally start to do research. It's like there's so much that went into this whole process. But basically, we had this name. Steven used to be in a line of work, and he still does some stuff with this, but he would have to go down a family line to figure out who owned the rights to certain minerals and all this. I don't know. He knows all of it. I don't really know how to explain it. I'm probably butchering it right now by trying to explain it, but basically he knew how to go down a family tree line and figure stuff out. So, and knowing that just makes this all even more weird, because it's like, so he was a huge key in figuring the truth of all this out. So anyways, we had these names, we had just, to my knowledge, what I knew about my birth and all this, knew where it was, knew all this. So we just did research, and it took 4 days. Steven was the one that ultimately figured it out. It took us 4 days to figure it out, but I just remember waking up. Estes is a newborn, still getting up like every few hours at night to eat, and I was up at 4 a.m. and Steven was awake, and I was like feeding Estes, and he's like, oh, hold on. All right, bye. So he's like, I know who your dad is, like, I'm just like, what? He's like, do you want to know? And I'm like, heck yes, I want to know. So yeah, so he explained how he figured it out up to that point. So we ended up figuring out that my first cousin that said on 23andme was actually my half aunt. And the way that 23andme does their percentages and whatever, it's like if you have a certain amount of DNA that matches with somebody else, that's how they base the relationship. So because me and my half aunt only shared 11, it was like maybe 12% DNA, she was considered a first cousin and not an aunt. So that's why at the beginning of the whole process, whenever it said first cousin, we just kind of like wrote that off immediately, because we were like, well, we're probably not going to figure much out from that. We're probably going to figure more out from the half brother stuff and all that. So anyways, but he ended up finding this obituary with her name on it, and so we like figured out, and I'm not like gonna go into a bunch of detail right now about all that, it's just crazy. I feel like I'm gonna have to do a sit down video with Steven in order for him to like describe the entire process of what we took and did and whatever. But ultimately we figured out the truth of the matter is that ultimately we figured out that for my entire life I have thought one thing, and that wasn't true. So I know that to someone that has not experienced that feeling, it might seem like this is really stupid or like it shouldn't change anything, but it literally changes everything. Like, imagine for 26 years, almost 27 years, looking at yourself in the mirror and thinking like you were these two people, and then finding out that one of those people is not biologically your parent. And just imagine looking in the mirror the next day after finding out that somebody else, imagine looking in the mirror the next day and not recognizing yourself, not knowing, like, it's just like if anything comes from this and me being honest about my discovery through a DNA test, I want this to help people that are trying to decide whether or not they should adopt, or maybe you're a parent that already has adopted and you are wondering why you would need to tell the truth about certain things, or why. And it doesn't even, and the thing is that I'm sure that at the time this was for a good reason, and that there was a really great thing that they were doing by keeping this all secret and whatever. But I can't even describe to you the emotional damage this has done to my psychological health. Like, everybody deserves to know the truth. Whether that's the hardest truth that there's ever been, they deserve to know the truth. Because it doesn't just affect me, it affects my kids. So, no, I'm not mad at anybody. Like, literally, I'm not mad at anybody. But to have that be a secret and lied about, and knowing that a lot of people in my family knew about it, which is fine, whatever, but then to find out from a DNA test, and then to have the audacity to say, don't tell anybody. Like, I'm sorry, but this is not just your life. This is my life too. These are my children. They have the right to know the truth of where they come from, and every person deserves that. So that just happened in July, and so I still struggle with this. I still have days where I'm like, I don't even know half of me. I don't know. There's just things that I don't know. So it's just like, it's hard to come to terms with that. It's hard to keep like going every day and just like living like as if everything's normal, because it's not. It's like, that is not, I don't know. Like, it's gonna be harder and harder for people to lie about DNA type stuff, especially in this day and age, whenever you've got Ancestry.com, 23andme, like that's a big one. There's just so many people that are finding out the truth of their identity through these tests. So it's like, tell the truth.